These are our stem changing verb notes. But before I get into stem changing verbs, I want us to review the regular present tense verb endings because they are going to be super important in order to be able to conjugate stem changing verbs, because stem changing verbs have the same endings as our regular present tense verbs. So remember, there are three different kinds of verb endings: AR verbs, ER verb endings, and IR verb endings. So let's first look at our AR verb endings. We have 7 different endings in the present tense. Yo is our yo ending is o. As is our tu ending, and as with the accent mark on the A is our vos ending. A works with él, ella, and usted subjects. Amos goes with subjects of nosotros and nosotras. Ais goes with vosotros and vosotras. And an goes with ellos, ellas, and ustedes subjects. So how did we do this? Let's review this real quick. So we start with a verb that ends in AR, such as bailar. As you can see, bailar ends in AR, and the first thing that we do is we take off that AR ending. And when we take off that ending, we just have BAIL, bail. And then we need to add one of the new endings, which are all of these fun endings over here. So whichever ending we add determines who the subject of the sentence is. So, for example, if I put amos after bail, we have bailamos. And bailamos matches nosotros. So the word bailamos would mean we dance. If I put AS as my ending, then we have the word bailas. And bailas matches the subject tú. So bailas means you dance, and it is in an informal situation. Anytime you add an ending, that ending determines what the subject of the sentence is. So it works for all of the different categories that I have on here. Each of the 6 categories have their own ending. We practiced this a few weeks ago. You guys did a great job on it. So I want to continue using this concept to move forward and use these endings in different ways. So those are our AR endings. Let's now look at our ER endings, which are right here. You're going to see that the ER endings are super similar to the AR endings. The only difference here is that they're E's instead of A's. So in the verb like correr, the first thing we do is we take off that ER. And if I want to say I run, then yo, right here, yo means I. So I would need the yo ending, which is O. So I would keep my CORR, and then I would add an O, and then I end up with the word corro. Yo corro would mean I run, because that O ending there indicates that it must be yo form. And if this is yo form, then that means I run. We do that with every single one, just like we did with our AR verbs. And it's pretty simple. You're always just taking off the AR, or in this case, ER ending, and adding one of the endings on the left. Let's look at the last set of endings. Those are our IR verbs. And IR verb endings were a little bit different because they have E's and I's in them. So as you guys look at those, that chart on the left, we see verb endings like IMOS, but we also see EN and E and ES. So I feel like this one is perhaps the most confusing one because there's E's and I's instead of just I's, but I'm sure you can remember these. So if I use a verb like escribir, which is an IR verb, remember the first thing I'm going to do is always take off that IR. and then add the correct ending. So let's do an example with the ellos, ellas, and ustedes form. If I want to say they write poetry, then I know that ellos means they. So I'm going to need that ellos ending, en. So I'm going to replace the IR that I took off with en, and then I end up with the word escriben. Ellos escriben would mean they write, because ellos means they, and the en ending matches with ellos. I would never say something like yo escriben, because yo does not match that en ending. That only matches with ellos, ellas, or ustedes. So I hope that was a helpful review of our present tense verbs. Now I want you guys to see a little bit how this is going to be used with stem changing verbs. But before we talk about that, let's first talk about what does stem changing verbs even mean? What is a stem? So here is this word stem. It's a grammatical word in this case. Every single infinitive in Spanish is made up of a stem and an ending. So let's look at these 5 infinitives. So dormir is an infinitive. We know that dormir means to sleep. So here is the infinitive dormir that means to sleep. And it's made up of a stem and an ending. The ending of dormir is IR. We know that because endings are always AR, ER, or IR. When I take the IR off of dormir, all I'm left with is dorm. Therefore, that is the stem. The stem is whatever's left over of the word whenever you take off the AR, ER, or IR ending of the infinitive. So similarly, if we have the word jugar, which we know means to play, the ending is AR, which means the stem must be JUG. Another example, we have the infinitive comer. We know that means to eat. The ending is ER, which means the stem must be COM. For the infinitive bailar, we know that means to dance, and we see that the ending is AR, so the stem must be BAIL. Last example, we know the infinitive escribir means to write, and we see that that ending is IR, so the stem must be ESCRIB. Everything except for the IR. So now that we understand what a stem is, we need to see how these stems change. As you can probably guess, in a stem changing verb, something about the stem is going to change. So let's look at that. Here we go. What happens in a stem changing verb? In a stem changing verb, the stem of the verb changes spelling in the following conjugations: in yo form, in tu form, in él, ella, usted form, and in ellos, ellas, ustedes form. However, the stems of the following verbs do not change in nosotros, nosotras form, vosotros, vosotras form, or vos form. So basically, if a verb is stem changing, you're going to have a weird spelling change, but not in every single form of the verb. Only in yo, tú, él, ella, usted, and ellos, ellas, ustedes. In the nosotros and vosotros and vos forms, there is no spelling change. That is super important to remember. You're going to see some examples coming up. Now, maybe you're wondering, what are the spelling changes? So we'll go over the spelling changes first. Here's the endings. The endings are exactly the same endings as our regular verbs, which we just reviewed and which you guys already know. You don't have to change anything about the endings. So if there's an IR verb that's a stem changer, it's still going to use our IR endings. It's only the stem that changes. If it's an ER verb, it's still going to use the ER endings. And if it's an AR verb, it's still going to use the AR endings. It is only the stems of these verbs that have something irregular about them. The endings follow the normal rules that you guys have already learned. Now, there are 4 different kinds of stem changes. O to UE. So that O arrow, UE, this very first one right here. That means that there's going to be an O in the stem that's going to change to UE. But remember, that only happens in yo form, tu form, él, ella, usted form, and ellos, ellas, ustedes forms. The second kind of stem change is U to UE. That means there's going to be a U that converts to the letters UE in the stem. There's a E to IE stem change, which means there's going to be an E in the stem that changes to IE. And the E to I stem change means there's going to be an E in the stem that changes to I. Now, if this feels a little bit confusing, it's going to help once we do some examples. So let's continue forward. Here are some instructions on how to conjugate stem changing verbs. Number 1, you need to determine the subject of the infinitive. Who is doing the action? Because we know that that's what determines what ending you use. Step 2, you need to take off that AR, ER, or IR ending and replace it with the appropriate ending depending on what the subject is. That's what you guys have already been doing with our regular present tense verbs. Step 3 is where it gets a little different. In step 3, you need to decide if the conjugation requires a stem change or not. So remember, verbs that are conjugated in yo, tú, él, ella, usted, and ellos, ellas, ustedes forms have a stem change, but verbs that are conjugated in vos, nosotros, nosotras, and vosotros, vosotras forms do not have a stem change. So you need to decide if a stem change is necessary or not. And step 4, if the verb requires a stem change, you replace the O, U, or E with OU, IE, or I, depending on what the stem change is. So let's go look at some examples. Here's our first example. We have the word dormir, and we know that dormir means to sleep. It just so happens that dormir is a O to UE stem changing verb. O to UE stem changing verb right there. Which means what we know about stem changing verbs is that O right here is going to change to a UE, in a couple different conjugations. But we know that it only happens in yo form, tu form, él, ella, usted form, and ellos, ellas, ustedes form. But we do not have a stem change in nosotros, nosotras, vosotros, vosotras, or vos forms. So let's look at the different forms of dormir. Look at the yo form first. We have the word duermo right there, duermo. You can see that I highlighted in green that O changed to a UE. And then all I did is I took off that IR ending and I put the regular yo ending. Oh, all of those yellow highlights are just the regular IR verb endings. There's nothing irregular about that. Those are the ones we learned last week. So that part is normal. But everything that I highlighted in green is the stem changes. All right? So the yo form, I sleep, would be yo duermo, and we see that stem change. O changed to UE. Same thing happens in our tu form. Tu duermes, that O changed to a UE, and I just added the regular tu ending, ES. Tu duermes. Now, the vos form is a little bit different because there is no stem change here. Remember, I said there's never a stem change in vos form. So I don't have a UE. There's nothing green highlighted in that word. It's just, oh, dormís. The only thing I did is I took off the IR and I added the vos ending. In él, ella, usted form, we have the word duerme. And as you can see, highlighted in green, that O changed to a UE. And I have the regular IR verb, él, ella, usted ending, which is the letter E. So duerme can mean he sleeps, it sleeps, she sleeps, you sleep. It's all form. And you sleep would be formal. Then let's go over to nosotras and nosotros ending. We have the word dormimos. And again, that O did not change because there's not a stem change ever in nosotros form. We don't change the O to a UE in nosotros form. We just keep the O. And we added our regular IR verb ending for nosotros, which is imos. Dormimos is we sleep. Then we have the vosotros and vosotras form. We have dormís. Again, no stem change here. It just stays O. You never change the stem in vosotros, nosotros, or vos form. So dormís means y'all sleep. It just so happens that the vosotros form and the vos form is the same for IR verbs. We have dormís on here twice. Then the last form is duermen. We see that green highlight right there in the ellos, ellas, ustedes form. And so the O changed to a UE, and then I added the regular IR verb ending. Duermen means they sleep or y'all sleep. So that is how we work out a stem changing verb if it is O to UE. We're going to do the same exact thing except a U to UE verb, jugar. So jugar changes U to UE. That U right here, right there, is the one that's going to become a UE in the forms of yo, tú, él, ella, usted, and ellos, ellas, ustedes. Remember, there's never a stem change in nosotros, nosotras, vosotros, vosotras, or vos form. So let's look at yo first. The U changed to UE, highlighted in green. And then I just have my regular AR verb, yo ending, which is O, because jugar is an AR verb. So I took off that AR and I replaced it with an O for I play, yo juego. Then for tú form, same thing. We have our highlighted in green, UE, because that U changed to a UE. And my AR ending is AS for tú form, tú juegas. My vos ending, my vos conjugation of jugar doesn't have a stem change because vos never has a stem change. So we have jugas. Jugas is my form, my conjugation for vos. The el, ella, usted conjugation for jugar has a stem change. So we can see it has that highlighted green in this form right here. Juega. A is that last letter. That's the ending for el, ella, usted form for AR verbs. And that U changed to a UE. So juega could mean he plays, it plays, she plays, or you formal play. Over to nosotros and nosotras form, we have the verb jugamos. And jugamos does not have a stem change because there's never a stem change in nosotros or nosotras form. We just have a regular verb conjugation with the AMOS ending since it's an AR verb conjugated to nosotros. Same thing with vosotros and vosotras form. No stem change, just the AIS ending. And finally, for ellos, ellas, and ustedes form, we see that UE is in every single conjugation there because the O changed to a UE. And then we added our ending AN. So juegan means they play or y'all play. That is our U to UE stem changing verbs. Then we have a couple different other kinds of stem changing verbs. We have the E to IE, and as you guys can guess, that E, I'll show you right here, is going to change to an IE in the verb querer. Now, we haven't reviewed this verb yet. Maybe you remembered it from last year. Querer means to want. And you do the same exact thing that we just did with dormir and jugar, except in querer, the E's change to IE in yo form, tu form, él, ella, usted form, and ellos, ellas, and ustedes form. But we see that in vos, that it stays E. In nosotros, nosotras, it stays E. And in vosotros, vosotras, it stays E, does not change to IE. And we have our regular ER verb endings in yellow because querer is an ER verb. So we always take off that ER and then add our ER verb endings for querer. We'll learn more about this verb and practice this verb a little bit more in the coming weeks. Then the last one that I want to show you guys is the verb servir. Servir is an example of E to I stem change. Servir means to serve. Maybe you learned this one last year as well, but perhaps this is a new verb for you. So E to I, this E right here changes to I right here in yo form, in tu form, in él, ella, usted form, and in ellos, ellas, ustedes form. However, in vos, nosotros, nosotras, and vosotros, vosotras forms, there's no stem change. We don't have the E changing to an I. We keep the E. So in servimos, it's E. In service, we have E. And in service, we have an E. So as you guys can see, the vos form and the vosotros form is the same again because it's another IR verb. So since servir is an IR verb, we took off that IR and added all of our IR verb endings in yellow. So that is our example of an E to I stem changing verb. Now there's other verbs. I just showed you 4. There's other verbs that have stem changes. There's a lot actually, but here's a short list of a couple of them. We have the 4 different kinds of stem changers: O to UE, U to UE, E to IE, and E to I. And here's a couple examples of verbs that change in have each kind of change. There's a lot more in all of these rows in these 4 lists, but these are the verbs that we'll be practicing with over the next couple of weeks. So words that we'll be using for O to UE stem changers are dormir, costar, poder, and almorzar. As you can see, all of those have O's. Dormir, costar, poder, almorzar. So the O's change to UEs in yo form, tu form, él, ella, usted form, and ellos, ellas, ustedes form. For U to UE, jugar is actually the only verb that changes that way. So that's easy to remember. The U changes to a UE in yo form, tu form, él, ella, usted form, and ellos, ellas, ustedes form. Here we have querer and empezar. That E and that E are the ones that change to IE in yo form, tu form, él, ella, usted form, and nosotros and ellos, ellas, ustedes form, but not in vos, vosotros, or nosotros. And then servir and pedir, this E and this E are the ones that just change to an I in yo form, tu form, él, ella, usted form, and ellos, ellas, ustedes forms. So those are just some of the verbs that have these changes, but there's much more verbs that have these stem changes, we're just going to start off learning these on this list. Let's do a little bit of practice. Here we have yo no blank deportes. And our verb is jugar. So we know that jugar, I'm going to try and write here. Jugar is an AR verb. So I'm going to take off the AR. And it's yo form. So in order to write my answer here, I need to change that U here to a UE because we know we have a verb change in yo form. So that's J. The U is going to change to UE. UE. And I'm going to put a G, if I can draw a G there. And then for AR verbs, the yo ending is O. Yo juego deportes. Let's do number 2. Mis amigos y yo. Jugar deportes. So, mis amigos y yo means my friends and I. My friends and I. Let's think. That's we. So that's nosotros form. In nosotros form, there is no stem change. So this U right here is not going to change. It's going to stay a U. So I'm not going to put my stem change in. It's just J, U, G. No UE here. J-U-G, and it's an AR verb. I'm going to take off my AR, and now I need to add the AR ending for nosotros, mis amigos y yo, because mis amigos y yo means we. We is nosotros, and that is amos. Our nosotros ending is amos. A, M, O, S. There we go. All right. Number 3, the verb is dormir. So we know this O might change to a UE. I wonder if it's going to do that in this form. Here we have our subject is los chicos. Los chicos means the boys. So the boys, that's they. They do this, they do that. The boys, they. So in ellos form, yes, we do have a stem change. Remember that O changes to a UE. So that's going to be D, U, E, R, M. And our ending was IR. So the ellos form ending of IR verbs is EN, duermen. There we go, duermen. Los chicos duermen mucho. And then last is number 4. Number 4, we're in vosotros form. And in vosotros form, there's never stem changes. So I'm just going to take my stem, D-O-R-M, and I'm not going to make any changes because there's never changes in vosotros form. D-O-R-M. And IR verb ending for vosotros is is. I with an accent mark. S. And there we have vosotros no dormís en clase. There's some practice. Now, hopefully you guys are able to complete the Kia assignment that practices in this same exact way. You're just going to be practicing the forms of jugar and dormir, which are here in this Google slideshow and in this video. So I hope this gives you some understanding of the regular present tense verbs and the difference with stem changing verbs. If you have questions, send me a message. I'm happy to help you, and we'll do more practice throughout this week. All right, that's it. Adios.